Hey, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam with a new video. And today we're going to be talking about desire and why desire pushes things away from you. This is a topic that's always been fascinating to me. And you hear in Buddhist and meditative circles and books why you should tame your desires in order to achieve higher states of mind, which is probably very true, but has never really worked for me. And so 2 weeks ago, I had an insight that that made the dropping of desire a very logical thing to do. And I'm going to read it. I made a note to try to capture what was the essence of this. And it says as follows: working hard for an outcome implies that you don't have it, or that you are other towards it. In other words, there's separation between you and the outcome. It brings its own resistance to the outcome, or a kind of rejection towards the outcome. You can only really have things towards which you are neutral. And that last phrase is the part that I really wanted to explore. See, our thinking minds tend to believe that the more we desire something, the more we are likely to get it, because that desire is going to fuel the discipline and the grind required to go out there and make things happen. Now, it may be the case that it fuels you enough to go and chase after something. But see, the thing that gets me is that even if you work really hard and you get that something that you work really hard for, if you did it out of a needy desire to acquire that thing, that needy desire is going to always keep you on your guard even after you have it, because that desire implies a lack of deserving the object of desire. So the act of desiring something implicitly states that you and that something which you desire are foreign to one another, so to speak. If you were sort of birds of a feather flock together type, between the desired object and yourself, then you would just flock together by definition. There would be no need to work hard or try hard or spend your nights thinking about how you're going to acquire this object and tactically maneuver around reality in order to sort of grab hold of it. So that desiring things creates this rift or this separation, which is a kind of is a seed in your mind of not belonging. I've heard stories, I don't know if it's true, by the way, but let's take it for what it's worth as an example, that Onassis, the billionaire, never quite felt at home in high society. And so you saw the guy trying very hard and making this big fortune and marrying a Kennedy and the rest of it. But see, the thing is, unless you in your heart of hearts feel that you belong, even if you acquire the object that you desire, you're going to be in constant fear that is going to get away from you, because the feeling of belonging is not there. And what's ironic is that it is your very desire for that object that created the separation in the first place. And so the dropping of desire is the idea of becoming neutral to the outcome. In other words, trying to exercise neutrality and trying to exercise acceptance, and being accepting of the moment and putting in all the work that you can, but being neutral to the outcome. So I heard somebody say it the other day. I think the phrase was clarity of intent and freedom from outcome as the yin and yang of how you can go about in life. So the clarity of intent means that you know what you want. You know, it would be really nice to have it. You're going to put in the work, but you're going to be putting in the work for its own sake, and you are perfectly fine with that outcome taking place or not. When you're coming from that place and trying to give and trying to experience the journey as fortune cookie-ish as that sounds, if the outcome comes, you're going to be in this receptive mode where you're going to say, of course it comes, right? I've done very well. I've surrendered to, you know, whatever life wanted to give and put in the work, and now the outcome is there, and I'm also okay if the outcome disappears tomorrow. So it's that the freedom from outcome is it's the liberating factor in the equation, and it allows you, ironically, to harmonize with that outcome in a much healthier and better way and sustainable way than if you were trying to hanker for things. And those could be anything, right? There's people who hanker for a certain social position. They would like to have a certain type of group of friends, and but they don't vibe with that group of friends because they see him as this other thing out there that is foreign and yet desirable. The same goes for the type of partner that people desire, right? So if you want to go with a partner that's perhaps very rich or very attractive or very well connected, it means by definition that element is lacking in yourself, and the desire increases the sense of lack. So when you lack something within, you cannot get it from without. You may be able to acquire the object, but the sense of lack is not going to be dampened by that, and it is likely the possession of the object is likely to create fear. So take, for example, the character Smeagol or Gollum in The Lord of the Rings. He has the precious. He has this ring that he guards all the time, and it has. He used to be this healthy, happy hobbit that was going around, you know, being all cool about stuff, and but he was probably never that wealthy or powerful. And he came across something that was ultimate wealth and ultimate power, and it consumed him completely. And all he could do is just guard it and get by eating raw fish out of a, you know, kind of dark little pond. And you know, he became just a squalid and consumed character because the precious represented an obsession and the fear of loss of something that he did not feel that he had inside. I suppose that's the gist of this video. It might not be a very long one, but it is this idea that our desire for things ironically pushes them away, because the exercising of that desire, I want, is the exercise of the lack that we feel of what that object represents. Now, and the object part is another interesting one. When you desire an object or a situation, it is very interesting to get into the mode of, I don't often talk about getting analytical about stuff that's happening in your head. I usually try to, let's say, bypass the analytical so that you can go into the somatic and the and pure mindfulness. But it is, I think, helpful to figure out what that object represents for you. In other words, you see something, you're hankering for it, and you project something into that object that can be delivered in the future by the acquisition of that object or situation. And you suddenly start to kid yourself into saying that it is really the object that you want, but what you want is what the object represents, which you feel you're lacking. And it takes just a little bit of mindfulness. This is not, I mean, talk about like, things that require a lot of mindfulness. I would say, probably one of that is at the top is how to diffuse anger in the heat of the moment, or even before it arises, right? That's kind of tricky. But when you are in like sort of desire mode, you have, I think, a little bit of more time, because see, anger is a spur of the moment type of thing, and you're like, emotions are running high. But desire, I think, tends to play over longer periods of time. So it gives you the chance to go like, okay, well, I've been hankering for this thing or person or situation or, a promotion or living in a different country or whatever for some time now. I want to now understand what is the essence that I feel I miss. Because objects, and I've done a video about this earlier, objects lack essence. They are ephemeral in that they are transitory, but they are also, they lack what you feel as your essence or your sense of self. They are just kind of there. They're a little bit of a mirage. So they must be standing for something more essential. Now, if you dig deep enough in that investigation, you would come to find that what you are really lacking, ultimately, is a deep, sustained sense of self. You are looking for yourself. But the avenues are several, right? That missing sense of self will sometimes have the phase of not having enough status, or not having enough financial security, or not having enough cool friends or whatever. But ultimately, that sense of lack is a lack of sense of self. So, spoiler alert, that's what it all comes down to eventually. That is not to say that some lacks are worth entertaining, such as, for example, if you are lacking, a nice social network or financial stability. Yeah, that's something you want to go out there and sort of work towards. Not only because you cannot really spiritually progress when these fundamentals are flimsy, but because your general quality of life depends on these things being in place. But if those things are in place and there's still sort of a sense of lack and a hankering towards things, you are very likely just not self-fulfilled. And there's only going to be one answer to that, which is to really go deep within and start doing the meditative work to get you there. But it is interesting nonetheless to do a little bit of an analytical exercise to go, well, I miss this. And, speaking about myself, for example, many of the things that I seem to hanker for seem to speak of a lack of sense of significance, right? I fear having a life with nothing to write home about, and to, one day be in a sort of unmarked grave, and maybe only a couple of people will sort of, pay their respects because they knew me in my late age, but, everybody else has disappeared, and, nobody remembers, and, something like that, right? So it's just like this meaninglessness of something, or being killed by like some sort of, drug teenager in a, country in Africa ran by some sort of warlord. And the painful thing about it is not so much that, they kill you, but the fact that them killing you means very little to them. It's just like it's nothing, right? It's like smoking a cigarette or killing you are on equal footing. And the meaninglessness of it is I find that very scary, right? Like, so many of the things that I seem to do are attempts to acquire meaning and relevance and sort of a departure from insignificance. And so find out what that is for you, and then you can find ways to develop that deeper sense of self, and from that, significance, in my case, arises more and more. And the great advantage to that is that you can then work on fulfilling yourself without the need for a middleman, which is the object or the circumstance that you're chasing, right? So those things are flimsy because you can't control them, you can't always acquire them, When you acquire them, if you don't feel like you deserve them, you'll be in fear that you will lose them, and then that sense of lack immediately comes back. So you have a lot of things to protect and defend, and you need to be sort of constantly negotiating your way around so as not to have your sense of self threatened because it's borrowed, as opposed to developed from the inside out. So that was a video about why desire is a very, very poor strategy for feeling fulfilled or actually getting the things that you want. It creates a sense of lack of the very thing that the desired object represents. It creates a sense of distance between you and the desired object, so that you are vibing on completely different levels, and you cannot bridge that. So the more that you desire, the more the thing seems to get away from you. And even if you get it, you're going to be in fear that you acquired it through undeserving means, or maybe you would just work really hard, but then you work really hard because maybe you felt you didn't deserve it in the first place, and so on, and it goes on and on. So desire is a poor strategy altogether, and therefore to the degree that you remind yourself of this, you can try to drop it. It is also a reminder to try and find out what the object of desire represents, what sense of lack is lurking in there that is being projected as a desire for an object or an outcome in the outside world. Hope that helps. I'll be back with more clips pretty soon. Cheerio.